Come north forward.
He
Here.
lived for 2 years.
Here.
Commissioner Webb,
Here.
Mayor Buckendale.
Here. Okay, this is a public hearing, call to notice to approve a proposed property tax levy increase for the city of Marion for the year 2015. And any person desiring to appear may do so. See, we have a couple of interested citizens, taxpayers.
Reporter.
Okay, you want to explain this to us a little bit, Steve?
It's on. Okay.
Sure. Based upon council's estimate, you can see that the corporate, overall, our increase is only 2.86% over the previous year, is what we're assessing over the previous extended tax. We're required though to have a hearing because our corporate is more than that because of the police pension. But then since we're not levying the debt service, it brings it down. So overall, when you look at the total impact on the taxpayer, it's gonna come down to a increase of, less than 3% probably.
That's at 2.86.
Right, exactly.
Okay, now, of course, up here we said, represents a 14.25%.
And it did, and that was the proposed corporate and special purpose property tax, which we don't have any special purpose, we just have corporate.
Okay.
And that corporate, that was due to the police pensions increase. But then, like I said, we're rolling that, taking out $150,000 we usually levy for debt service, and we're rolling that up into the corporate section. So therefore, then we're raising our proposed, estimated property tax for debt service is 0, is what we're doing. So therefore, then if you combine them together, it ends up with the 2.86%.
Okay, so we're doing away with the debt service aspect.
Exactly right.
And all we're levying for actually is the pension.
Yeah, well, it'd be the 2 pensions and then the recreational tax.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yes,
But the bulk would be for the,
pensions, yes. Yeah, the 1,540,000, 1.4 of it is for pensions. And like I mentioned before then, I estimate if, with all being equal, the AEV not changing, it would be roughly on a $100,000 value home, it would be roughly a $4 increase.
Okay. Steve, I was at the 1,347,000 and the 149,163, and that comes to $1,497,121.24.
Yes.
All right, where does the remaining difference for the 1.54 come?
Well, that is actually different, that is the extended tax. Last year, we actually levied $1,505,800, but by the time they do their extensions, then, we'd always end up losing a little bit. People come in and protest and their taxes get lowered, and then that gets spread out among then the taxing bodies.
Okay, all right.
And so that's why it's a little bit different than
I'm
that
sorry.
sheet I gave you.
Yeah, I didn't take that into consideration.
Yeah.
so you're suggesting that on a $100,000 property, the tax rate increase will be $4?
Yes.
That doesn't sound too much. $4, that's a little,
You can't buy a value bill.
that's a little over 10 cents a day
Yeah.
for the year.
Yeah.
Boy, what a bargain.
Jump on.
Yeah.
That's all based upon the numbers which the council decided they wanted to levy for the pensions. We've gone through all that already, so.
Okay, now, do we yet know what our assessed valuation's gonna be?
They told me they won't know that until the first of next year.
Oh, and the first of next year's only 2 weeks away.
Yeah. I think the way she explained, if I'm thinking, I could be wrong, I'm thinking she said around February or so, about February, they would know,
Well, that's close to the first
you
year.
know, so.
They didn't have any idea.
No, they wouldn't give me any kind of estimate at all. That's why I just basically used this year's EAV as being a conservative estimate.
Well, maybe the assessed valuation for all city property go up and
Yeah, and if it does, then the impact on each taxpayer then will be less than what we,
be less.
than what we estimate.
Yeah,
Mhm.
well, sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions? Well, we commenced at 7 o'clock and it's after 7 now and, sure you kids don't have some question you'd like to ask? Well,
None?
if that's the case, you understand what's going on.
Yeah, I've spoken with Steve about this before, and I have extensive notes.
Well, okay, if that's the case, and there's nobody else around wanting to make a comment, to ask a question, this, public hearing will now be declared closed. And we'll commence the regular meeting in about 20 minutes. Call roll.
Here.
Commissioner Hightower.
Here.
Commissioner Webb.
Here.
Commissioner Goss.
Here.
Mayor Butler.
Here. Yeah, okay, any addition or correction to the minutes of the meeting of November 23rd? If not, the minutes will be approved. And I think, Elaine, where are you? Okay. 310. Have a little annual audit review here.
Think so too.
Boy, this is fresh off the press, it's still warm.
I've got a couple, I've got one for the Senate.
I don't know if anybody, well, let's see.
I have
You
one,
got
thank
one?
you.
No.
Okay. And Gail has some. I have one.
Okay. The audit report is not that much different this year than prior years. You've got the same two audit opinion letters, clean opinion on the financial
Speaking to the
statements.
mic, if you will.
Is it, am I making, okay, that's better, I can hear it now. You've got a clean opinion on the financial statements and clean opinion on internal control and compliance. After that, you've got all the financial statements, the notes to financial statements, the management's discussion and analysis is in there. You'll find this year it's a little bit longer, the report in total, than it has been in prior years, and it's gonna get even longer next year.
Oh, it is?
Oh, yeah. The new pension
Is
standards.
this because of new regulations or proposals by
This-
some CPA
This
association?
is, this is new standards by the Government Accounting Standards Board, and this is on pensions.
Which is made up of CPAs?
Yes,
Yeah.
mostly, I'd say they probably are.
With all due respect, you know.
You've got additional disclosures in there, some this year on IMRF and the police and fire pension. Next year, they're gonna grow even more. You're probably gonna be adding another 30 pages plus, I'd say.
be several pages, and then we're gonna have the OPEB, they're changing that too, it's gonna increase even
Mhm.
more too.
You're gonna have a lot of changes next year, or a lot more disclosures and schedules because of this pension regulation. That,
No, wait a minute, you said because of the pension resolution?
no, the regulations have changed, the standards for the GASB, their pension standards. And
That
this,
will
this
help
is
us.
this is for all governments, so,
Making it more transparent.
Sure. Misery loves company, and
Yeah, by
and
confusing.
the CPA Association
Oh.
is making sure that we're all gonna share the misery. Boy. With all due respect,
I'm not arguing with you at all, because it's been very time consuming this year dealing with that, and next year it's gonna get even worse, cause there's gonna be so much more. And, the actuaries are probably gonna bill you more for that, wouldn't surprise me. Anyway, what I tried to do again is reduce the audit report, some of the key financial statements down to the graphs, and I've got comparative through the years. The first one on top should look like that. It's based on page 17 of the financial statements. It's a full accrual statement. This is the revenue portion, it's on the governmental funds only. None of these statements that we're gonna be looking at include any of the water and sewer because they've got their own reports.
nothing proprietary.
No. And I've also got in here a few pages back, a little cheat sheet that gives you a breakdown what the revenue categories are made up of and what the different expenditure departments are, where they're all included. That might help you as you go along, if you look at this later on. On this set of graphs, you're pretty consistent from year to year, other than the grants, and those fluctuate. And especially this year, you had a large road construction project, there's over an extra $1 million of grant money in there that state paid on your behalf. And just wanted to point out, if you look back the second page where we've got comparative years, look at your totals on revenue from back in 2005, 15 million and something, and now you're up over 30 million. In 10 years, a lot has grown, a lot. The next set of graphs, this is what they look like. This is also based on page 17. This is the expense portion. It's also full accrual, and it gives you the breakdown by department of the governmental funds, the different categories. And I want to point out, I said that your revenue just about doubled in that period. Your expenses didn't.
As long as the revenue keeps pace with the expense, we shouldn't be in too bad a shape.
Do a little comparison. This year, your total revenues were over 30 million. Expenses were quite a bit below that. The print is getting smaller each year, I think. Your expenditures are only 26 million. So you're doing a good job living within your means.
That doesn't, make sure they understand that's not equivalent to cash though.
No, this
At all.
is accrual basis.
Yeah.
That means on the accrual basis, what you're seeing on a daily basis or monthly basis in reports from Steve, cash basis, your fixed asset purchases are in those expenditures, your principal and interest are in those expenditures. This accrual basis, we pull out the principal portion of those note payments, principal payments, and they offset the liabilities. They're not included in the expense. Same way with fixed assets, they get capitalized and added to the balance sheet. That's the big difference on the full accrual versus the cash basis. Next set of graphs, that's what they look like. This is based on page 16, full accrual. This is the asset portion of the governmental funds. And if you look back to 2005 on the back page, you'll see that your assets have more than doubled since 2005 also. And the fixed assets, which is the orange section, those are your largest area. You're over 92 million in fixed assets now. And as it,
You have to, on the glad you're there. Why is there such a variance in our cash and investments between 2015 and 14, but our assets are up 15 million from?
Look at the difference in your capital assets too. This last year, you had some major road construction projects, you had the hub construction, you had the police station
You're including
construction.
the road, highway
oh, yeah.
construction in that.
Yeah,
Okay.
all the
Yeah.
road work is in here too.
Yeah, we spent down, we spent down bond issues.
Yeah, but I mean, the cash and investment was $5 million difference.
But
Yeah, like Steve said, you had bond issues at that last year where you had
Yeah.
started things,
Yes,
and this year, those big projects are wrapped up.
okay.
Yeah.
now I notice here it says the capital assets, a value of 92 million. Who determines that?
The city.
We do.
Mhm.
See, and you gotta remember, that's infrastructure too.
That's
That
all the
includes
road
roads,
work,
bridges.
Sidewalks.
Yes,
You
Is
guys-
exactly.
there any,
buildings,
is there any
equipment.
depreciation in that?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
That
Mhm.
is net of depreciation.
Yes,
Or net of
Mhm.
depreciation?
Yes, that is a net number from the depreciation that's accumulated through the years.
yes.
Wow. Well, somebody's doing something must be pretty good. I think it's Steve. He's got the figures.
So these 2015 numbers are a little bit projected since we're not at the end of the year, is that
No,
right?
the 15, those are the actual numbers, it's no projection. That's
April
the-
30th,
April 30th.
as of April 30th.
Mhm.
Okay.
Last set of graphs I've got, that's what they look like. This is also based on page 16, it's also full accrual. This is the liability equity section of the governmental funds. And you're gonna have fluctuations here. Your debt is growing, but you've had bond issues to grow there. Because of your fixed assets, your debt has grown, but your fixed assets have grown. And like the question you asked, why was the cash fluctuated so much? As you spend those bond proceeds, your fixed assets are going up, but then as your fixed assets go up, the debt that you use to finance those is also going up. Each time you issue more bonds, that increases the debt limit, or the debt amount. Did anybody have any other questions, comments, or anything on the graphs?
It's very clear, very simple.
If you, after you have time to look over these, if you've got any questions, please feel free to contact me. Steve's got my contact information, so does Gail. If anybody wants to sit down and discuss anything, I'd be happy to.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Good job, as always.
Thank you. And I wanna wish everybody a Merry Christmas,
You too,
Happy Holiday Season.
thank you.
Steve.
Now, you guys all understood that, I'm sure. That's a fact. Okay, let's move on to item number 2. Something about insurance premiums. Okay, what's the deal on that?
Okay, when the last meeting, John Cavness was here and the council approved the Blue Cross Blue Shield rates for 2016. Senior choices are other insurance, and that is for people over 65 that are retired from the city. So they have their primary insurance is Medicare, and the supplement is called Senior Choice. We had approximately a 10% increase.
Right, yeah, it varied depending upon their prescription coverage.
And the main difference is, if you look down the sheet, these are actually I redacted the names of the people. So anyone that is retired from the city, some will say Blue Cross Blue Shield, some have Senior Choice and Blue Cross Blue Shield. But the main increase in Senior Choice the seniors that are 65 and older, they have a choice of prescription plans. And if they had the premier prescription plan, they paid a higher premium. If they had the standard or regular prescription plan, they either didn't pay as much, or some even had a decrease. So, John wasn't able to be here, but between Steve and I, if you have any questions on the senior choice, we'd already approved the Blue Cross Blue Shield. This was just the rates in general.
So what are their drug rates? I know we pay, we may pay as 5, 20, 40, something, 25, 40, something like that.
Well, part of theirs is also dependent on Medicare, and if they have the Part D, the donut hole type.
Yeah, the premium one, I think, is in the high, I wanna say mid to high $200 a month. And that's just the prescription portion, not the medical portion. Okay, but that is a premium plan. Some people don't take very many drugs, so they don't need the premium plan, so they opt out, so they opt in a lower plan. One is less expensive, but because they don't need the kind of medications that the higher plan offers.
But that's their choice, not
But
ours.
that's strictly their choice, exactly.
Right, so you're saying that these figures do not reflect the prescription aspect of this?
Yes,
No,
it does,
these
it does.
do.
It does?
Yeah, it does. Oh, yeah, it
Okay,
reflects it,
all right.
yes,
Yeah, so if some are higher
yes.
in the senior choice, that would be because they have chosen the more premier prescription plan.
Yeah, and that's why the overall percentage for senior's choice is actually a little bit higher than the Blue Cross.
Yeah, you're seeing some here in the 800s, 900s, and we're just assuming that they took the premier plan.
Right, yeah. And also too, it's also, age dependent, but we smooth that out. In other words, the older you are, the higher the premium can be, depending upon your age. And that's not the prescription portion, that's the medical portion.
That's nice.
Yeah, that's the medical portion.
Yeah, it's like the 90-year-old getting life insurance.
They don't offer it.
Well, if you can find one, that would- usually they cut it off at 85,
Uh-huh.
but your premium is gonna be as much as the face value of your policy.
You noticed that, haven't you?
I've seen that.
I have too.
So. Okay, so you got somebody here with a premium of $902. I assume that's including the drugs.
Right, that would be the whole thing. Now, what we do is
That's Blue Cross Blue Shield.
yes, that Blue Cross, yeah, okay,
Yeah, it's Blue Cross Blue Shield.
yeah.
Yeah, and that was a 6% increase. That's the Blue Cross Blue Shield, you guys approved that, the council approved that the last meeting.
Yeah, but
Yeah, just-
that was a
This is just our retirees in general, from anyone that's retired from the city on disability or, age 65 and older. Just so the council's aware that the premiums they're paying. And the city, this does not include the city's portion of these premiums.
Well, what's the total number of people that we have in this class? Retired, disability, or whatever.
Well, I don't know, I would say it's probably up to 25, probably anyway. We're close to, yeah, about 25. I'd have to count them and see.
You go by what we've
Yeah,
got.
I'd have to count them and see,
Yeah.
but yeah. But it's growing, put it that way, and it's not gonna stop growing for a while.
Yeah, well, as long as you have people.
There's
they're
like
gonna-
about 55.
They're gonna get older.
But there's also some, police or fire that are on full disability that the city pays for.
Now, the senior's choice is just for people 65 and over, and older.
Yeah. Okay, so what? Do we need to do anything?
The council just needs to approve that, so we can, finish because, John it was not approved at the last meeting.
So you're just asking us to approve these rates for these individuals?
Yes.
Okay, is that your motion?
That will be my motion, Mayor.
Second.
Call the roll.
Commissioner Vanilla,
Yay.
Commissioner Hightower,
Yes.
Commissioner Webb,
Yay.
Commissioner Goss,
Yay.
Mayor Butler.
Yay. Okay, what's your pleasure with respect to ordinance 3289?
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Commissioner Manila,
Yay.
Commissioner Hightower,
Yay.
Commissioner Webb,
Yay.
Commissioner Goss,
Yay.
Mayor Butler.
Yay. Okay, I don't know if we're ready for this or not, but ordinance 3283, having to do with sewer and water tap fees, we got a draft there. Where are we on this?
I think it's still in committee.
Oh, it's, we're not ready to,
We're not ready, I think the sewer and water commissioners, I think we need,
I thought we was gonna combine this.
we were gonna
with our-
combine that with the, street excavation ordinance.
yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Combine
We
and
can,
simplify.
sure.
Yes.
Yeah, we got made it much easier.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, all right, and that's
You're
still a
gonna
work
table
in
that one in
progress.
the, 3275.
Okay, that'll be a work in progress. And, okay, what about the fire department, seeking, approval of application to Harrison Bruce Foundation for a grant, for the fire department to update communication systems, radio repeaters.
Mayor, I talked to Jerry a little bit tonight, and we're actually wanting to hold off on this for just a little while.
Oh, okay.
Still get some bids and stuff, so we're not quite ready.
All right, very good. Then, okay, got the Midwest fence proposal for guardrails, Spurtown, Red Grove, Comfort Drive, Clear Springs, and Boyden Street. You know anything about that, street commissioner?
I have the superintendent of the streets here that knows all about it.
Oh,
You wanna
okay.
tell him about it,
It's some damaged
Come up,
guardrails
Mike.
we have.
so he can get on camera.
Smile.
It's 3 different locations of damaged guardrail we have, and have a bid there to replace the guardrails on all 3 locations.
Now, is this to replace existing guardrails?
Yes, it's damaged, yes, beyond repair.
They've been damaged?
Yes.
You mean we got people running into guardrails?
And we've, Red Row and Spillertown out there, it's a pretty large guardrail along that deep ditch there, so it's, but yes, we got an estimate there to replace them.
The new intersection there at State and Red Row isn't affecting, protecting the guardrails.
No, it's the big curve coming into town there, at Riker Drive.
Oh, okay, that's when you're coming south. and
Yeah,
you have to turn.
they went straight off of, this is about the 3rd time, and it's,
Do we need a light?
it does have a light, they tore all of it down this time. It has a flashing light with barricades and signage, and it's
That's
just,
called failure to negotiate.
yeah.
We ever tried to go after their insurance on this?
I never found, never,
head north.
it didn't,
No reports yet.
no reports, no. Checked in on the log, and there's no reports, and, no witnesses, it just, tore down and,
Well, it's obvious the vehicles hitting the guardrail are better than the guardrail.
it had to do quite a bit of damage, the way they were tore up, but, yes, it,
Is there any way like you can go to a body shop and check with them, or, of course, not anybody's gonna tell the truth.
Well,
I'm sure they hit a deer.
yeah.
You're assuming though that these are vehicles, automobiles say. It could be somebody just driving a D8 Caterpillar
Yeah,
made a turn. Failed to make a turn.
Tractor.
street department probably is.
Somebody
If you
in the
wanted
street
to really
probably
stop
made a
that,
turn.
you could put one of those
If
big
my
concrete
motion
barriers
accepts
there.
this bid,
Yeah,
Mayor,
that would do
we'll
it.
go further.
Okay.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
I'll second that motion.
Motion made and seconded, call the roll.
Commissioner Manila,
Yay.
Commissioner Hightower,
Yay.
Commissioner Webb,
Yay.
Commissioner Goss,
Yay.
Mayor Butler.
Yay. Okay, now. Next, the consideration single axle waste trucks. Well, I understand nobody's got one. And I think that we have our gentleman here from the Republic, and they're a little bit concerned, because Republic's got a lot of, compactor trucks, but not one single axle truck. They don't have anything,
Single rear axle.
yeah, single, they don't have any 13-ton trucks. So, they're not by themselves. I think another major, trash hauler has got much the same situation. So, we've got a little bit of a quandary here. And perhaps these gentlemen from Republic will have some suggestion on how we might try to get this thing resolved. Doug, do you want to come up and tell us about the problem that you've been having?
Our narrow streets and our cul-de-sacs are taking quite a bit of damage from, when you get a large truck like that in the cul-de-sac, that much leverage turning, we're having a lot of problems with the streets being torn, tearing, and pushing up in these cul-de-sacs and, small streets. And, it's, the narrow roads, the shoulders are just giving away, it's just, the weight, it's not,
And these would be the asphalt streets you're
Yes.
talking about.
We repaired on this last overlay project we done, we rebuilt several of the cul-de-sacs. The asphalt was just completely rolled up to where they wouldn't even drain. And, just trying to come up with a solution to this, on the cul-de-sacs and small streets to preserve them, you know, when you spend that kind of money for an overlay project.
Do we know of any other surrounding communities that have weight limitations or have the same problem?
There is some of them that do have weight limits, knowing exactly where they're at, couldn't get it clear.
There may not be many of them that have, their entire street in the city asphalt like ours either, so.
And I think some of the townships still have their own trash, service for the township themselves.
Right.
So,
We know Heron does.
Do we have any concrete streets that is receiving this kind of traffic?
Josephine, south of the high school had to be completely redone also. It was just a total rebuild on it, and it's just the weight, I mean, I don't know.
It's the
When
weight
you
with
have that
turning.
shorter radius,
Not just the turning, just the weight itself on some of the straight lines are breaking down.
Okay, all right.
Well,
You fellas want to come up and discuss the situation with us? Okay, these gentlemen are from Republic.
Yes. I'm Doug McFarland, I'm the general manager for Republic. I brought two of my colleagues with me tonight. Gary Pearson is our division manager in charge of our landfills. Gary's a long-term resident of Marion, and I believe most of the council is familiar with him. And then this is Doug Qualia. Doug is our controller for Republic Services, and Doug was the controller for Midwest Waste, who was a small independent hauler in Marion that Republic Services bought out in May of 2013. So one of the things that we talked about when we met with the mayor and Gail the other day is, as you mentioned, the fact that most of the trash haulers that serve Marion are going to struggle with this weight limit. So it's not just the Republic Services issue. And one of the things we did to just kind of try and help understand the issue a little bit, within our system that we use to manage the transfer stations, We operate the Marion Transfer Station on behalf of the city. We operate the Heron Transfer Station, and then we also have Southern Illinois Regional Landfill over in DeSoto. And as part of our scale system, we actually have tare weights on all of the trucks that come through, because that's what we have to have in order to properly weigh and charge customers for the tonnage they bring in. So we've got a little bit of data, and we just wanted to share a little bit of that tonight to kind of frame things. Burris Disposal is one of the other major companies that services Marion. Burris has 9 rear load trucks. The average tare weight of all of their trucks is 24,916 pounds. They have 3 trucks that their tare weight is over 26,000 pounds. So a third of their trucks are already overweight, and on average.
And that's without any load.
Correct, right, that's the tare weight.
The trucks are empty at that weight.
Right,
Yeah.
so on average, Burris's trucks would only be able to carry 1,000 pounds at that tare weight.
And what is their capacity?
Their larger trucks, the capacity is 8, 9 tons.
Yeah, about 54,000 pounds gross.
Right.
54,000
Mhm.
pounds?
You mentioned the city of Heron a second ago, and yes, the city of Heron still runs their own trash service, but they bring their trucks into the Heron transfer station. City of Heron has 3 trucks. Their average tare weight is 30,653 pounds. So all of the city of Heron's trucks are also above the 26,000 pound weight limit. Tony Hill is one of the other major trash suppliers that covers commercial and residential. Tony has 2 trucks that we have in our system. His average tare weight is 34,720 pounds, so both of his trucks are over that. Williamson County has 1 rear load truck in our system, and it may be a little old, but their 1 truck that we have comes in at 27,600 pounds, also over. And then the other main carrier that services Marion is Bulldog Disposal out of Harrisburg. Since they're one of our competitors, they don't dispose at our facility, so we don't have their tare weights, but they run the same type of equipment that we do in terms of rear load trucks, where they would not be able to provide service. So the concern that we have, again, is not just a Republic Services issue, it's providing service to customers. And while the list of unrestricted streets does exempt a number of streets that have commercial services, there are still a number of what the trash industry would consider a commercial account, such as an apartment complex, that would not be able to be serviced by any one of the 4 haulers that handles commercial accounts in Marion. So there's a lot of concern about how we would be able to serve not just residential customers, but even some of what are considered commercial accounts, where we have the larger size dumpsters, not just carts or individual trash cans. So that's just kind of a quick overview of the industry and the size of trucks that are operating right now. We certainly recognize the cost and the problems you have with the streets. That's undeniable. I'm a resident of Marion myself. And in the 2 years that I've lived here, I've been real pleased with what I've seen on some of the street repairs, so that's great. But I think we need to have a little more dialogue, and again, as we can kind of provide a little framework here, what we don't want to do is get into a situation of some unintended consequences where we're attempting to solve one problem, and in fact, we wind up inadvertently creating some other concerns.
So, you told us what your competitors' trucks weigh.
Right.
And one was 27 tons.
Yeah, 27,000 pounds, right.
27,000 pounds, I thought you said 54. Full.
That's loaded, that's a license.
That's loaded maximum weight. Well, I'm sure that's where the damages is occurring.
Right.
So that's 27 tons. Are your trucks similar?
Yes. The smallest truck that we operate in our fleet in southern Illinois is 26,000 pounds.
Okay.
Empty.
Empty, yes, tare weight, empty.
And 54,000 loaded or more?
Yeah, that's a good range.
60 when it's wet, maybe? Does it go up to high 60 when wet load?
I can't remember us seeing a load
Usually
that
all,
high.
they're licensed for 54,000, we usually
Right.
keep them all significantly under that, so when it does get wet, we actually have that buffer there.
And We follow DOT regs and bridge law regs, so again, Republic, at least as a company, is very focused on that, and we're actually in the process, it's a longer term process, but trying to make sure that each and every one of our loads is within bridge weight laws. Something else, just as kind of a piece of information, if you go through Federal Motor Carrier Act, the 26,000 pounds is actually empty weight for a Class B truck. So a 26,000 pound ordinance limit kind of pushes it into that's your base weight for any commercial vehicle for any driver that has to carry a Class B license.
Well, let me ask you this, you'll see these trucks, and you have several that have the dual axles, and then they'll have a third axle.
A tag axle.
Yes,
Mhm.
up in the air, I mean, then what does that allow you to carry? Would you put
So,
that down?
just like Doug was mentioning.
That's still the 54,000.
Right.
Okay.
Illinois doesn't recognize, like, Missouri recognizes that third axle, they can add on, I think it's another 18,000 pounds roughly. But
Yeah.
Illinois doesn't recognize that, to carry that additional weight.
Yeah.
Well, as I understand it, the problem comes when the front wheels are turning,
Mm-hmm.
and that creates a rut. Now, the bulk of the weight, though, is behind the wheels. So, your load is only gonna come where the front wheels have already torn up whatever there is.
Yes, that's accurate in terms of kind of how the trucks are balanced. The other thing that we wanted to make sure was clear, we can't control what each and every employee does every minute of every day out there. However, for Republic Services, the way our drivers are trained to manage cul-de-sacs from a safety perspective is to pull in, stop the truck, gather all the carts and containers from around the cul-de-sac, bring them to the truck, empty them, and then depending upon the orientation, either back in or back out, because typically cul-de-sacs, just like you're pointing out, are really kind of too narrow for a turn radius. There are some locations and some instances where the trucks do turn, but as a general rule, that's actually not the way we tend to operate, just because of the safety factor.
Then, are you suggesting that one of the solutions is that with a cul-de-sac, your truck drive in and back out without making any turn?
That if cul-de-sacs are one of the primary concerns, that is something to consider. And again, for us, for safety purposes, that is the way that we primarily train our drivers. Because once you get in the cul-de-sac, there's enormous risk for us to run into fixed objects, whether they're mailboxes or other parked cars. So again, that's why, for safety purposes, our drivers are generally trained not to do that.
Some drivers aren't doing that because we get them pushed up so bad. I don't know whether your drivers or
Yeah.
not, but they're not adhering to that rule.
Yeah, and that was kind of the preface to my comments. We can't always control every act at every moment, but
We have a lot of cul-de-sacs that are just great.
yeah,
We spent
Yeah,
$1 million repairing our roads this year, so we have to do something.
Yeah, well,
absolutely.
of course, none of those trucks are backing out.
Well, they're backing out, not gonna solve all the problems. They'll solve the ruts on our narrow streets and bringing down our shoulders. We got a lot more of those cul-de-sacs.
Let's take one problem at a time.
Okay,
Let's just think about the cul-de-sac. If they drive forward to the cul-de-sac and do as you suggested, pick up all the trash and bring it to the truck, then get in the truck and back out. Now, there's not gonna be much turning with that, and there shouldn't be any real damage to the cul-de-sac, unless we're saying the trucks are too heavy to be on that stretch anyhow. Now, most of our asphalt streets had been oil and chip streets for years, and should have a pretty solid base. And so you would think, unless it's really a tremendous
this damage occurs, it would be in hot weather, right, Doug?
Yeah, and the
When
freezing,
the asphalt is
and
soft.
and the freezing and thawing, you know, in
Right.
the winter, you know, you're gonna have.
Yeah, freezing thaw would make
Yeah.
a difference.
Okay.
It makes a big difference, yes. Alleyways the alleys that are nothing but gravel, you know, in the freezing and thawing, with that type of load is a, you know, every alley is a challenge too, in the winter time.
Somewhere along the line, we were told that 13 tons should be a limit. And I don't know whether they got that from other cities or wherever, but are you telling me that they don't make trash trucks to accommodate that
They
limit?
don't have,
I know they don't have them, do they make them?
There are,
You could get them if you had to.
yes, you could probably find a supplier that would build you that small of a truck.
Because I'm not an expert on that, or I
Sure.
understand it. But,
Right.
we did research it in different spots in different states. And there are those people that have 13-ton limits, and they,
Right.
in fact, one of the manufacturers we called said a certain truck loaded would be a 13-ton load.
And those would be very small trucks that,
Yeah.
because of the cost increases, would require us, not just Republic, but all the haulers serving Marion, would require a significant cost increase to the customers.
Yeah, other than the smaller haulers. Yeah.
And with the smaller haulers, you run into a number of other issues also. They typically are the ones that create more blowing trash issues, create significantly more safety issues. If you notice some of the smaller kind of pickup truck operations, Gary and I were just talking today, there's somebody in town that's taken a regular pickup truck and added 6 feet onto the end, and it drags down so low it almost drags the ground, and they're completely out of compliance with DOT regs.
Yeah, it is. And I just want to clarify the fact that the 13 tons that we've come up with is not something we just thought of. There are trucks that will accommodate.
They're
that,
extremely rare.
but they can be had.
One thing with backing out the cul-de-sac, when I think cul-de-sac, I think of kids. I mean, are these trucks got backup cameras, or, I mean,
Absolutely.
are they pretty safe to back up, or?
Our trucks are equipped with backup camera, side cameras, and then the back of the trucks have what we call an alley camera, so that as trucks back up, if they're in an alley, they can, from the back of the truck, see what's going down there.
What do you guys think a fair weight is for a truck? I mean,
That's kind of a difficult question to answer because,
54,000.
well,
Yeah,
that's the federal bridge laws that any commercial motor vehicle is subject to.
if we focus primarily on the cul-de-sac, would that remedy most of the problem with the street, or, I mean, does it go far enough, cause
Yeah, but I
Johnny
mean,
seemed to have concern.
what are you talking, even if you went to concrete, you're talking about what, within 8 inches of concrete to hold that load?
It depends on your repeated loadings. If you did it once a month, concrete,
They're doing it
probably
once a week.
once a week.
Well, no, you can't, you honestly can't say that, they're probably doing it 5 days a week, because you may have a different hauler in there.
It's the,
That's-
it's
You're
the
doing it one
repeated
day,
loadings,
Right.
it's the
Right.
repeating loadings day after day on it, that, if you was doing it once a month, probably wouldn't be a big issue. But if you have that every day loading, every day in hot weather, freezing and thawing all the time, you're based on the volume, with 54,000, you're probably looking at a 7-inch, minimum of 7 inches of concrete and 4 to 6 inches of stabilized aggregate subbase.
we don't have that.
base,
I'm sorry?
We don't have that.
That's rock.
what kind of a base? Rock?
It's rock, crushed stone.
Yeah.
That costs all money to do all that, Marion, if you did every
Oh,
cul-de-sac.
that would be,
How many cul-de-sacs do we have?
look at a map and see, I guess. I don't know.
100?
No, I don't think we have 100.
Not that, but a number. a
Well, I
good
mean,
number.
you can look in,
Let's say 50 maybe.
let's see, it's Summerfield. Castleberry, what's the two off of, Westminster? I mean,
You
there's
got
all,
around Western Air.
yeah.
You see, I understand there, the problems involved in those guys, but also a street commissioner, I understand the problem of our streets. and $1 million a year, and we didn't get them all fixed that we should have fixed. So I'm willing to try to accommodate and make a reasonable accommodation, but just allow 54 tons, or 54,000 pounds on a street.
It's 27 tons.
27 tons, that hadn't helped us any. But
Well,
I'm open to some kind of negotiation, I know, I see the problem, but we we haven't alleviated our problem, because it's not just cul-de-sacs.
Well, okay, now let's move cul-de-sacs, and you were talking about the edges.
Yes,
Okay. What seems to be going on with that?
Doug,
We've got several edges, the edges of the road out on a narrow roadway, when you got that size of a truck coming through and that much weight on that edge, because you're having to get over pretty close for that automatic arm to come out and pick them up, correct?
Couple of feet away.
Yeah. So I mean, on a narrow road, so traffic's still passable. I mean, all that weight on that edge, we've got,
Sure.
we're working every day for shoulders, you know.
every day you do it.
So,
And
just
your
to,
edge of your road typically doesn't have the thickness of the
That's,
the
yeah,
subbase that you have out in the middle.
on the
where-
crown.
Because you get down on the edge, now they've overlaid that with like 1.5 inches of asphalt, but many times that may only have 3 inches of stone underneath of it at the very edge.
Right.
And then when that heavy weight gets on that, it crumbles and breaks it off.
so just to clarify on the weights, because the 54,000 pounds, we're getting a little focused on that. Our side load trucks that we run, their empty weight is typically around 34,000 pounds, right, Doug? And our company goal is no more than a ton load. Occasionally, we will have an 11 or a 12-ton load. So we're not talking 54,000 pounds. We're talking 33,000 pounds plus another, 10. I mean, it gets close to that. And the other thing, again, just to emphasize, I want to make sure that everybody's clear. This is not a Republic Services versus Marion. This is all 4 major haulers are going to have the same issue. So,
No, you just happen to be the people who are
Correct.
discussing it.
Yep.
But we know that it's industry-wide.
it's just not trash trucks either.
No,
No, I mean, in fairness to you guys, it's just not trash trucks.
okay, thank you.
Talk about.
Yep.
Concrete trucks and.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, you're not
We
zero.
run a lot of
Okay,
concrete
now,
trucks.
wait a minute, wait, let's just take one truck at a time.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
Well, concrete trucks, now, you cannot compare them with trash haulers.
Maybe a once a year type thing in those
Yeah.
side streets.
Yeah, and they go to a specific spot to deliver the concrete, and then they leave, and they may never come back to that spot, so you can't really compare them. Although they've got weight, there's no doubt about the weight that they have.
As an example, Halfway Road was put in the 90s, early to mid-90s. It was 8 inches of concrete on 3 inches of subbase granular material. We've had huge, tremendous amount of trucks running up and down through that all the time, held up good. We had a good subbase, we stabilized the subbase with dirt, we put the stone down, and we had 8 inches of concrete. Beelman's in there with all his big trucks there, up and down there all the time. It's held up good. There's a few cracks here and there. It's been in there for over 20 years.
Since Walmart was built
Yes,
out
since
there.
the original Walmart went in out there. So
Yeah.
I'm giving you that as an example of a concrete street that, fine. But now, many of these side streets, what we resurfaced here, sure, Doug, we put 1.5 inches overlay on it. That's not much. And that's fine for vehicular traffic on these side streets.
Automobiles.
Yeah, on the main lines, we did Market Street over here. We had a brick subbase, we've overlaid it 2 or 3 times. So we've got about 3 inches plus or minus overlay on Market Street. And it could hold trash trucks every day running up through there and it would hold up good. It's your problems come in when we get these old oil and chip streets that may have had 3 inches or 4 inches of subbase, put 1.5 inches overlay on it. We come along later on, put another 1.5 inches on it. But you don't have the base there to support repeated loadings from heavy trucks, whether albeit concrete, trash, whatever you want. We couldn't afford to do every street in town that way. We'd be multi-millions. And most of them are held up if you have passenger car traffic. They'll hold up fine. It's this, the big, if you get the repeated loading from the big trucks.
How many trucks do you run in town?
In Marion,
Yeah.
we have one residential truck, and then we have two commercial trucks that run, opposite sides of town. So on any given day, we generally have two trucks in
Two
Marion.
trucks running,
Mhm.
so if you went down to smaller trucks, you have to go up to 4 trucks perhaps?
Probably. The other thing we have to do is not unlike your conversation a second ago, we would actually have to go buy those trucks and invest that capital and address, order of magnitude another $1 million of capital investment that we would have to recover through the citizens of Marion rate. And speaking as a resident of Marion myself, that might have also some unintended consequences.
You balance that versus the cost of it keeps fixing the
I think we
streets.
just don't
That's the balance that you have to.
Completely
Well,
understand.
that may be so too, but $1 million a year repair our streets is not happy either for us.
I
Well,
understand.
part of
As a
it is
resident
having
of
trash
Marion,
everywhere is also.
as a resident of Marion, I don't appreciate having to spend that on our streets, they can tore
Yeah,
down.
but it's not all due to trash haul.
Well, I know, but it's partly in it, and
Well,
we're getting
yeah,
in a
yeah,
position
but
to,
let's be
and we're gonna
realistic.
threaten us on the
They're not
re-election, I don't
responsible
like
for
that.
$1 million.
But I'm not
I'm
for
sorry, that,
re-election.
I'm sorry, that was not my intent to talk about reelection.
That's the way it sounded,
My
didn't it?
apologies,
Yeah.
my apologies.
But, you know,
I was just being perceptive of what he said.
I knew what he said,
Yeah,
yeah.
You know, the
I'm a
other,
pretty perceptive person.
Oh, you really are.
the other thing to think about too, if you go to smaller trucks and put that limit out there, road limits, your commercial accounts, just like I was talking about with the, apartment complexes and other small businesses scattered out through these residential areas, there's no way to service those commercial containers. You limit those streets.
Right. A lot of your restaurants in town have what we call an 8-yard container, and the smaller trucks cannot physically lift those. So then the next thing you'd have to deal with is your restaurants would have to go to having 2 or 3 containers, which then gets at all the corrals that they've built for that, would have to either be rebuilt or addressed somehow.
Okay.
The
So,
answer to
we
that
hear
is
about
most of those restaurants are built on streets that accommodate your
Yeah.
big trucks. They're not on the oil and chip line surface streets. Yeah.
But
What do you think the solution is? We know what the problem is.
That's what I was gonna say, we heard the
Well, what do
problem,
you
what's
think
the
the
solution?
solution is?
That's a very difficult question. Now, one of the things I mentioned when we met with the mayor the other day, I haven't been able to put my hands on it, but there's a highway study that we've got that we had shared, you've seen that before, haven't you, Gary? That I'm trying to put my hands on, that we've got on file, but it sounds like you're extremely well-versed in it, so there may not be anything new in that. When you talk about the repeated loadings, one of the ways that you can reduce the repeated loadings is to look at some other options that may involve a city contract, for instance, that may put all of the residents and, commercial accounts under one hauler, and then all of a sudden, rather than 4 or 5 companies repeatedly driving over the streets, then there's one company that drives on the streets one time. The weight restrictions that you're talking about are another way to go.
There's no way we can do that. Then you get into free enterprise and monopoly, and the next thing we know, if we did, well, I gotta say that, we're gonna have other people. And here's my problem there, we got some people that are small independent haulers that have been lifelong residents of Marion, and that's how they've made their living and raised and supported their families and spent monies in our community. And to take that away from me sitting up here, there's no way I could support one company. I'm all, about spreading.
Of course, I think what he's talking about is sort of making a division, a split. Most of your small independent pickup truck operators are gonna be in the residential area. I think most of them will have very few commercial accounts. So you might have a double tier deal there. But, of course, that's one solution, just have one operator. Throw the thing up for bids. That might be one way of approaching that, if you
state of Illinois, I think, don't they have something on licensing? The bigger, the heavier the trucks, the higher the license fee, something like that? Possibly without breaking the bank, sit down and negotiate what would be a realistic number to help defray some of the cost of maybe on some of the streets.
But if you do that, you're just gonna, they're just gonna put it back on the consumer.
I understand that, but not $1 million in capital investment, you might be talking about a much lesser number. And make it fair so that it's equitable thing for the guys to operate a business. You know, you can't price them out of business.
Well, you worry about
Oh, no,
the
I mean,
consumer
they-
paying, the consumer is the one that's being served.
Right.
And so this is something that involves everybody. And everybody's gonna have to suffer a little pain, it seems to me. Because you have waste, you have trash that has to be disposed of. To dispose of, you've gotta have people, you have to have entities willing to do it. Now, I don't care how you slice it, there's gonna be a cost. And that cost is gonna be passed on to the ultimate user, consumer. So what you wanna try to do is keep the costs as low as you can, but you have to recognize that there's gonna be a certain limit below which you cannot go. Now, are we talking about two or three things here? One, trying to beef up some of the streets, the cul-de-sacs. Another is trying to get reduced weight in the trucks. It seems to me that there isn't going to be any solution that is really going to be palatable for anybody. And yet, the problem is there.
Mayor, I thought I had, I probably wouldn't report it, but, for these areas with cul-de-sacs and stuff, have central collection points where people would go take their bags of trash to a central dumpster at places, get off the streets.
That's why they have these guys in them great big green and blue carts that they just wheel out there.
Just a thought, I mean, you could
Well,
keep people off,
of course,
keep them guys off the street if the citizens were taking it out.
but then you got the problem, where you're gonna put the dumpster. I don't
Who,
want it in my yard.
yeah, there you go, that's what we're saying. Who's gonna draw that straw?
Now, when you load those big dumpsters up, that's when you really put the pressure
On the front end,
on the front end. I mean, that's when that weight, because you're picking that up and you're, the AMC Theater years ago had a big trash barrel at the back there, and they had asphalt back there to it. Within 6 months, they had runs this deep of where they had loaded up, and they broke through the asphalt, they were down into it, and they had to get about a 20-foot to 12-foot wide, 10-inch thick concrete, back up there, load that up, keep from busting and going on through. So when time you get those big units and you load those up, you've really put the pressure in pounds per square inch onto your street surface.
There's a house on 4th Street that's got a, probably, what's one of the smaller,
The 2 yard,
2 yards?
right.
Why would you have that in a residential neighborhood?
You'd be surprised, there are actually a number of those. My daughter's got a friend, lives behind the Kroger, and they've got a 2 yard dumpster on Peabody Street. And I was noticing that the other day and kinda asked the same question.
But that's probably,
Might have a home business or something.
yeah, well, that may be the community pickup.
Right,
Scottsboro.
typically that's people that share a container.
You know, one, part of the solution could be, or considered, is, you talk about the alleys, the problem in the alleys. There's a lot of towns that will not have alley pickup, where everybody has to put their trash out on the streets. Which, that would be a piece of the solution, is an ordinance where all the trash is gonna be placed out in front, and stay out of alleys. So that would help cut some of the maintenance.
Is there any way that some of that could be, your routes could be remapped so that your trucks are starting out
Well,
on some
well,
of
we
these
don't- I
lighter
don't-
streets?
It could,
And doesn't end
it
up-
can or could be, most time we try not to run the alleys.
We don't.
Yeah.
But-
Well, I'm talking about like the lighter streets and the cul-de-sacs, a truck ending up at the end of the day, loaded with 54,000, 53,000 on that road, opposed to 32,000 or 34,000 in the morning.
That's certainly something that we'll be glad to look at and try and work with you guys on. I mean, that's, we wanna do this together, and if there's a way that we can resequence our routes, certainly.
I think the last thing the city would want would be trash scattered all over
That's
town.
what I was gonna ask Commissioner Webb, when you were with the county, how many dump sites did you have where people, because they didn't care, they couldn't afford, would toss things that you ended up having to be responsible to pick up?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right, we had quite a bit on the, is up on the road, you know.
It still is. It's still an issue, that's.
Well, we can try a far-ranging discussion here, and I don't know that we'll really reach the solution.
And the thing of it is, we've got to make a decision, or we've got to repeal an ordinance until we
Well,
come
we
up
can,
with
we
it.
can simply say that it will not go into effect January 1.
Yes.
Yeah, and we can do that. Are you willing to give it some more thought?
Yeah, we wanna try and approach this as partners with you guys.
Yeah, yeah.
Republic's been a part of Marion for a long time, with Gary's personal involvement, with the transfer station, with the investment that we as a company have made in the city of Marion, so, I mean, we view ourselves as wanting to do this together.
Certainly, Republic's been a fine corporate citizen, and I know Gary's been on top of the transfer station operation, and absolutely to be commended. But this is a little different problem than we've been facing in the past. So, I think maybe the council collectively needs some more time to try to come up with a solution. I think we've all had things disclosed this evening that we were not fully aware of.
Of our, Doug, of our 1.1 is what, between 1.1, 1.2 million we spent on, overlays this year. Do you have any idea what percentage of that went to, or what cost of that went to, our cul-de-sacs?
I can think of 5 cul-de-sacs right off the top of my, the first ones we went to, there was 5 of them, and all 5 had to be rebuilt, basically, we worked ahead of the paving crew rebuilding them, but it's,
Yeah. Now, when you say rebuild, now you just brought up another deal right there. You were ahead of the paving crew rebuilding a cul-de-sac at a cost that's not associated with that $1.1 million we spent.
that was the only way to do it. I mean, we had, you had all the asphalt rolled up, the drainage wasn't drained off the cul-de-sac. We went in and took all that out, put the base stone like Lynn was talking down, tamped it, rolled it, and then put a base coat of asphalt in there first before they came in and paved it. So, I mean, it was.
And that 1.1, Anthony, didn't,
That's
cover
right.
all, they didn't cover all we needed. We just ran out of money and had to quit, but we had probably half again, and that's that needed to
Well,
be
he
done.
just said something right there, John, that
Sure.
we did 5 cul-de-sacs out of our, whether it was
Actually getting it ready.
motor fuel tax or gas tax, it doesn't matter, we spent monies.
That's right. And money's
in
getting a little
addition
tight, guys. Motor
to the
fuel
one
tax is
point
no
You
longer-
could probably go back, and it wouldn't take too long to do it. We've got it broken down street for street for street. That's easy to figure out what our cost was. For instance, none of these side streets, we did West Main Street out by, the Fluke property out there when we did that one. We did, East Main Street through here, we did North Market, we did the Old Creole Road. We did some main lines that had nothing to do with the streets that was deteriorated because of the trash truck. Our side streets, and this is what Doug was alluding to, we can take our subdivision streets and our lightly traveled narrow alleys and side streets and figure out that's the place where we're getting our problem. You could break out what we spent between 1.1 million on the main line fixing and also the side roads and the alley fixing. That could be broken out. And you can say this cost was allocated for that, this cost was allocated for the big plumbing streets.
I think it's something we need to look at.
Well, then, it wouldn't take too long to do
Look at
it.
it, but, I don't know what purpose is served, other than you find out that it's cost this much. Then what? Of course, the next logical step is to say that, trash haulers are gonna be using trucks with this weight and all across the board, charging $5,000 a year. Or $20,000 a year for a permit to operate on the streets at whatever prescribed weight.
Exactly.
That would be one scenario. I don't know how practical that could be, but you can see, for me, that is original thinking, and it's as a result of the discussion that we're having.
Let me ask you this, you guys are probably the largest haulers of waste in the United States, are you?
Unfortunately, we're second behind Waste Management. I hate to say that, but yeah.
Really? Are there municipalities out there that charge for you or have ordinances that, for trash trucks that does do exactly what the mayor's talking about, that you know of?
So I can't speak for certainty, but it's probably reasonable to say that within the United States and all the territories that we cover, there's probably a wide variety of ways that this problem's been addressed.
There's something that approaches that, and they call them impact fees, which many communities have for a subdivision development. You say you're gonna have a subdivision, 100 lots, 100 residents. What impact is that gonna have on the city's infrastructure? How's it gonna handle sewage, water, streets? And then they will assess an impact fee against the developer, against the subdivision in some way. So there is precedent for that kind of a thing. Okay, having said all that, perhaps we could get together again in a couple of weeks. You think that'll give you time enough to come up with something original?
I came up with something.
Oh, well, something workable. Yeah, something,
I haven't been
something
convinced yet.
reasonably workable.
I haven't been convinced yet it is, but that's okay.
Well, you'll never be convinced contrary to your thoughts, so forget
I
that.
have no problem with that statement.
Okay, what about that? Want to come back in a couple of weeks? And let's
That would be
figure
great.
out some more?
We appreciate the council's time tonight to just kind of share some information, and this, we feel like it's been a good dialogue, and my team and I will be here whenever we need to talk.
Understand, we're all on the same team.
Correct,
I
yep.
mean, we're all wanting to wind up with a resolution, a solution that we can all.
Well, I think it's like, like Bruce said, the last thing we want in this town is trash on our streets.
Right.
There's enough, I'm gonna use this, there's enough McDonald sacks, and Hardee's and everything else that get thrown out the window anyway without, the rest of it.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, well, let's see,
Thank you.
wait a minute, the next meeting is when?
The 28th.
28th of December.
You wanna come back 28th?
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much,
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Would the council have time between now and the 28th to arrive at any?
I don't think we're gonna get that done. I mean, I think we're gonna have to
Well,
hold off on the January 1st date myself, but
oh,
I
well,
mean, they could go back and it's something like I said, when he's talking about impact fees, I'm talking about ordinances that, that have, fees associated with the size of trucks and everything like that. Is that gonna repair our streets? No, but it'd help offset them.
well, see, this is an idea that we can float, and we'll see that the ordinance doesn't go into effect January 1. We gotta have time to work through this thing, so we will take care of that.
this is a TIF in TIF 1, which is our oldest TIF on Halfway Road. If you haven't been to Krispy Kreme, it sits in TIF 1. And there are basically 7 years left in this TIF. So this was, the council had done, well, this is an existing TIF already. And so this agreement is pretty much the boilerplate language for the state. The main it's an 80-20, so it's 80% to the developer, 20% to the city. It has a cap of $1.6 million, which his project cost in 7 years, if he he will never reach his cap, because that's the project of what they have put into, that would be TIF eligible expenses. But, and the total project was over $3 million. In 7 years.
Yeah, there's no way he'll reach that.
No, in 7 years, he'll reach like 350,000.
Now,
Just wanted to clarify that.
Now, this is real estate tax?
Yes.
Okay.
So this would best be a TIF redevelopment agreement with our normal language in TIF 1.
Yeah, well, this is typical, usual agreement. Okay, having said that, what's your pleasure?
Be my motion to accept the ordinance 32 now.
Make the same.
Call the roll.
Commissioner Manila,
Yay.
Commissioner Hightower, Commissioner Webb,
Yeah.
Commissioner Goss,
Yay.
Mayor Butler.
Yay. Okay, update code changes. What is that about?
Good evening, everyone. I don't know if you got a copy of the list of the names there, so I'll kind of read them off quickly
They
here.
don't.
They don't? Sure thing. So we have 4 employees that we're looking to not add any additional hours or anything like that, but add some additional departments set up. So it's really a department ad. You can say it's a add pay codes, depends on the verbiage that you want to use with that. The same thing that we've done with adding someone from, let's say, the aquatics department to wellness. But we have a few employees there, one individual with 2 different rates there, and I'll just kind of go through them. Morgan Kozart currently works in our cafe and birthday parties there, and she is looking to move over and help out in our member services department there at the rate of $9 an hour. She's currently working about 12 hours a week on average there, and we're looking to move her a little closer to the 18 hours a week. So she'll be picking up a few shifts on the membership side.
$9 an hour, what's she getting now?
In the cafe, when she's working in the cafe, it's at 8 1/4.
8 1/4, okay, so that's 75% increase for her.
Only when she's working in the membership area.
Only when she's working there.
Correct.
Okay.
Stephanie Palmer she's resigning from her position as a wellness attendant. She's no longer gonna do the wellness attending, but she's taking on some soccer instruction, private instruction programs. Those are only programs where if someone's paying for the class, is she getting the payment for that one? That's a 50-50 split there, so those classes are drawing $40 a class for that, and she would be making $20 there, which is standard for most of our personal trainers there. Matt Lewis actually has 2. He's taking over some basketball instruction. He's currently in our sports and rec department as just an instructor at 8 1/4. He'll be taking on some basketball instruction, some lessons, private instruction lessons, and then he's also helping out in the wellness area. We've had some staff that are having some hand surgeries, so they're out in the early morning. He's picked up a couple shifts there. I want to make sure that his money gets accrued to the right spots for payroll purposes. So he would have a wellness attendant rate of $9 an hour. And I will certainly type up a better list so that way you've got this in the future. I apologize.
And that takes care of the 4?
4 total changes, 3 people.
Oh, okay, okay. All right, having heard that, what's your pleasure?
Make that motion. Second.
Motion made, second, call the roll.
Commissioner Manila,
Yay.
Commissioner Hightower,
Yeah, absolutely.
Commissioner Webb,
Yes.
Commissioner Goss,
Yay.
Mayor Butler.
He's got
There you go.
One more.
Yeah.
Took a
okay.
quick nap there, Mayor. I'm back for action.
Okay, what are we talking about? Southern Illinois Select Volleyball Club, what's this all about?
Sure thing. So this should be on your iPads or in your packets there. You've got three sheets there. One's a little bit about what Southern Illinois Select Volleyball is. Then there's just a little bit of kind of some financial recaps of it. And then there's actually the last one should be our, actually what the purchase is entailing here. So last year, we absorbed the Southern Illinois Select Volleyball team into the hub as part of our process. And in the budget there, we kind of put together, they had 4 teams last year. We anticipated having 4 teams this year, put in the anticipated fees and everything like that. As you can look there, it tells you a little bit about what the program is. It's obviously volleyball club for girls ages 10 all the way up through 18. We'll actually have 7 teams this year, as opposed to only 4. We'll have 7 teams. They've actually already started with their clinics and some practices are beginning. But the season really runs January through April. They'll have twice a week practices, and then they'll have a bunch of tournaments that they'll be involved in all throughout Southern Illinois and Southeast Missouri. So they'll kind of be all over representing Southern Illinois and Marion and the hub and doing all of those wonderful things there. As a part of that, if you look at the second page with the financials there, it shows you kind of what the budgeted impact that we'd already taken care of this year. And I'm really coming to you to talk about uniforms tonight, but figured I'd just kind of recap the entire program just since it's kind of new this year, obviously. For uniforms, based on that, we were anticipating a $5,000 purchase this year, which would obviously require approval of the council there. But due to the 3 additional teams, we actually have an increased amount there, and it's about that time to order their uniform packages. So I'm asking the council tonight to approve up to $8,800 for the buying of all the uniforms and equipment that is pieced right there. They've already paid for that with their fees.
Oh, they paid for this?
Absolutely. This is part of their fees.
Oh, so it's actually not costing the city anything net?
No, nothing net at all. It's just a little bit of a higher number than what was budgeted, so I wanted to make sure that I showed that there was additional revenues to
Well,
offset those
as long
costs.
as your enrollment fees or whatever are covering that cost.
And that can be seen on this sheet right there.
Sounds like it's a popular program if it's growing.
Absolutely. The 4 teams last year, I don't exactly know how many participants that was. We have 92 participants this year.
Wow.
Wow. Well, I assume if we're gonna have teams, they've gotta have uniforms.
You gotta look good to be a winner.
Did Carly organize this, or?
Yes, sir.
You know what I'm talking about, Carly Williamson? She is an organizational fool.
Right.
Am I right?
Without question.
Genius.
Yes.
Well, I wouldn't categorize her as a fool.
No, well,
Genius,
that
maybe.
was just a term, but I mean,
I know
that
what, I know
girl,
what you mean.
that girl is misorganization to the T.
Without question.
And
Especially with this program being fairly new and not seeing some of these numbers come across your eyes before, I wanted to make sure that I kind of explained them and spelled them out a little bit, because I actually told Carl, I said, give me a little bit of feedback on this one, because it's gonna be hard to tell the council I need $8,000 worth of t-shirts and backpacks, but they have paid for it, so
Yeah,
Well, I mean-
that was difficult for me to swallow.
I can understand that.
look what she did, what she got dumped on in that football program. And in just a few short months, she took it from we're out of this to we're back in it. And these, 120 kids are playing football again with good equipment and everything like that. So,
Absolutely.
I mean, she just, of course.
And just to give her another plug on this one, this is actually her forte. She's a Southeast Missouri graduate, 4-year starter for the volleyball team. She's actually in their, and I don't know if she's quite in their Hall of Fame, but she's in their circle of greats, or whatever they may call it at their school. So she's, volleyball's what she knows exceptionally well.
Okay, having said all that, is your motion to approve this?
Yes, I'll second.
Call the roll.
Commissioner Vanilla,
Yay.
Commissioner Hightower.
Yay.
Commissioner Webb.
Yeah.
Commissioner Goss.
Yay.
Mayor Buckler.
Yay.
I have one more thing while I've got you all here. So this evening, right before I came over for council meeting, we officially hit 3,000 units of membership at the Hub Recreation Center.
our 3,000th membership was sold, so
And that will involve how many individuals?
7,300 plus.
And if the council will recall, our original goal was 1,000 members in our first year.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you're certainly to be commended for
Good
all your good work.
great team over there, it's a great team.
Yeah, it always takes a leader, and I think you've been doing that.
That's you. You're the leader. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much. Okay, anything else we need to take up?
Exactly.
Yes, I need to make a motion to pay the monthly bills as funds become available.
Second?
Call the roll.
Commissioner Manella?
Yay.
Commissioner Hightower?
Yay.
Commissioner Webb?
Yay.
Commissioner Goss?
Yay.
Mayor Buckler?
I'll make a motion to pay the consent agenda.
Second?
Call the roll.
Commissioner Manella?
Yay.
Commissioner Hightower?
Yay.
Commissioner Webb?
Yay.
Commissioner Goss?
Yay.
Mayor Buckler?
Yay. Anything else?
That's it, thank you. And you.
Oh, no.
All right. Jim,
Nothing further.
okay, we'll skip John. He might have something.
Well, I'll keep it to myself for the time
Well,
being.
go ahead.
No, no.
Share it with
Well,
us.
I'll share something really exciting, our cemetery report for November.
Oh, boy.
That was, we did
Nothing
receive,
more dead than the cemetery.
that's not bad. We brought in $12,800 in the month of November, boys, it's pretty busy. Everybody thinks we don't do any work at the cemetery, you should follow us around like that. They do a yeoman's job. So we did bring in $12,800 revenue. So
They're paying.
I commend our staff, they do a great job.
12,000, how did you generate $12,000?
Well, we had 18 burials, if you want it itemized, for $6,000. We had, seven lots for $6,700. We, out of that, $130 went to Goddard Chapels for grave spaces, $180 went to Goddard Chapels for grave openings. And the cemetery, we received from the cemetery $600 out of that 12,000. You're benevolent, you're so benevolent.
How come you to get so much?
Because you didn't know I got it. Because but anyhow, that's an exciting report there for you.
We appreciate that.
That's okay.
Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay. No reason for this meeting to be continued, I assume. Anybody else have anything?
May I speak?
Sure.
Don't have everything written down or organized. Received
I'm Bruce Carter, for those that don't know me, I used to be an employee here from '99 till 2012. My wife was employed until June of 2013, I believe, and she had to, she has fibromyalgia and arthritis, and she worked at the Senior Citizen Center lifting pots and pans. She could no longer do it. She liked the work, but she had to quit. Since then, she's been approved by IMRF and has been covered under disability. And I emphasize that word for a reason. The short-term disability at the end of 30 months under IMRF then a person becomes eligible for permanent disability. IMRF, whenever they sent the form to the treasurer's office to certify, I think it's probably a better term, that she indeed was still off work, and while they were pursuing the possibility of her getting permanent disability, they termed it as being disabled. The term retired. The term retired was never brought up prior to that time. She never filled out a form retiring. She's never drawn $1 from IMRF retirement. And fortunately for IMRF disability, it is a little bit higher than what her retirement would have been. I received shortly thereafter I think I spoke with the assistant treasurer, and she informed me that as of December 1st, we would now, because I'm a dependent under my wife's insurance, she would now be considered disabled. And those of y'all that have been working for, with the CBAs know that whenever a person retires, I think there's been some change recently, that contract, but the old contract read, people that, when they retired, were eligible for health insurance based on age at retirement. So if they were 60 when they retired, it was 38% of whatever the bill premium was from Blue Cross, XYZ, whatever company you're with. As an employee, we're billed 25% of the billed premium. So what this means is a 13% increase in cost to us for our health insurance, which now we've both been approved by Social Security Disability. So we're Medicare primary as of, Mona's Medicare primary as of December 1st. We've submitted the forms to Mr. Cavanis. So Medicare is primary, Blue Cross is secondary, and then we kept that because of the prescription drug program. You actually can't get a Medicare, I cannot go out and I tried to solicit a program to be covered for Medicare supplement and Part D elsewhere. I was not eligible, we're not eligible to get that until age 65. I didn't know that, but found that out. So anyway, my concern, my point that I would like to make is that just because IMRF, again, my wife has been drawing or been paying 25% of our billed premium since she became disabled. Nothing other than the collective bargaining agreement where it states when a person retires, then they base it on the age at the person at the time, the date of retirement. 60, 62, 65, it lessens as you get older. So now that she's deemed to be unemployed or retired by IMRF, the city is deeming her to be retired, not applying for long-term disability, which indeed she is, permanent disability. And again, she's already on that with Social Security disability income, which I thought was the hardest thing in the world to get. Come to find out, IMRF is the most difficult thing in the world to qualify for. Because when I told IMRF that she was covered under Social Security disability, and they go, yes, but those qualifications are not the same standards that we use. Anyway, I feel that the additional 13% is rather burdensome. I've been unable to work since 2010. Mona, other than working a little 2-3 hours a day to help people out, Mona's not been able to work since she filed for disability 30 months ago. So the income is going down. And now we're going up another 13% on health insurance just because it's being deemed retired. I would request that the council look at, and I know I've already called out to Launa and spoken with a young lady out there that replaced Mr. Harris, I believe. And I think she's been in touch with both Mr. Butler, Brett Butler? Barkey, thank you. And also with Mr. Stone? No.
Starr. Kevin Starr.
No, your city councilman.
Steve Green.
Steve Green, thank you. And I haven't heard any results, but I know that she's had discussions. And so all I'm doing is to look at this as what it is, a disability. Between the fibromyalgia, which is crippling, the arthritis, and the other things, she's unable to work. So she is truly disabled. And until someone tells me different, she is disabled, not retired. She's never filled out a form, never put her signature on a form that states she's retiring, and never drawn a single retirement check.
Well, what about the IMRF? Have they denied her disability?
No. No, right now, she just ran out of the short-term disability. It goes from short-term disability to permanent disability.
Yeah, yeah.
At this time, she filled out forms, and then, of course, they're asking for more information from the doctor to deem, whether or not he deems this to be a permanent disability.
Well, at this time then, IMRF has not denied her permanent disability.
No,
But in the meantime, what is it you're asking the council to do?
to not deem her to be retired until indeed she retires.
Or until they make a determination.
Our labor attorney is working on this
Yeah,
and,
yes,
does
our
not
labor
want the
attorney.
council to make any decisions at this time.
Yeah, I don't see where the council would have anything to do, but you're
No.
explaining the situation.
I'm explaining the situation that this is
We're
not.
aware of the situation.
But I
We
think,
weren't told, Gail, first I heard.
Well, it's not, because it's still with our labor attorney, so it's not something to bring to the council
But
at this
I
time.
hadn't heard any comment period on it.
Well,
But
think
this
what-
is all new to us.
but I think what you're asking is until a determination is made one way or the other.
Delay the 38% increase until the time that she's actually deemed, if there's a discussion between Mr. Barkey or, Mr. Green, and be it, Lane.
It doesn't matter what their discussion is. Ultimately, it's gonna go back to IMRF, how they deem it, right, Steve?
Well,
I mean, if they deem
Well,
it.
Steve, I
what,
don't think you should, I think we
Okay.
should wait.
okay,
Okay.
Well, to me, it looks, what you're wanting to do is to get somebody to absorb the 13%
Additional,
increase.
yes.
Yeah,
That's what it
that's
amounts
true.
to.
that's true.
If she were strictly retired,
Be no question. She would have to pay the additional 13%,
yeah,
according to CBA,
but if she were on disability,
which she is.
which, well, yeah, from social
No,
security.
she's not. So, but it's not something we can discuss right now.
The last check she received from IMRF was for disability,
Temporary.
temporary disability.
Yeah.
Now we've applied
Yeah.
for
The
permanent
additional
disability.
tax in play.
Yeah.
So she has not been,
Yeah,
There
She's
are,
not-
there are additional things that the council would have to be aware of,
yeah.
that we have been advised that we cannot talk about because it hasn't been
I'm
decided.
just explaining to the council.
Yeah.
But they don't know all the facts either.
Well, he's telling us what he wants us to hear.
He's telling what he wants to hear.
Yeah.
We're not gonna
okay,
say
so
what we.
There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we'll listen, and we have.
Her last name is Carter, I'm married to her. That's her cross to bear.
Okay, all right. We thank you and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else have anything? If not, I think the motion to adjourn is being ordered.
Second.
Call the roll.
Commissioner Manila,
Yeah.
Commissioner Hightower,
Yeah.
Commissioner Webb,
Yay.
Commissioner Goss,
Yay.
Mayor Butler.
Yay.
See, my heart bleeds for the second largest trash hauler in the United States. They can't afford $1 million investment in smaller trucks.
They've been tearing up $1 million worth of streets.
Did you